There's a certain sci-fi story I think a lot about, particularly in relation to the weird constructs humans use to govern our lives, but it's pertinent here. So near the end of the For the Benefit of Mankind short story in Cixin Liu's The Wandering Earth, a human-adjacent migrant from the First Earth is discussing his world's history with a hitman named Smoothbore. He talks of how his world became separated after the creation of a miniature supercomputer which could be implanted in the human brain and would increase a person's intellect to a point where they would render all other humans as undeveloped as dogs. A incredibly powerful education afforded only to the ultra-wealthy. After this, the ultra-wealthy lost all sympathy for all of the lesser poor people below them. Yes, they didn't even see them as people anymore. And under the guise of something known as the social machine, an army of billions of robotic enforcers of the law, and the complete automation of all means of production, removing the need for labour, the concentration of wealth in First Earth society became maddening. Eventually, one single immortal man, called the Last Capitalist, would control all the world's wealth, literally owning the planet, its atmosphere, almost everything on its continents and its oceans, and not allowing anyone else into them as they were his private property. The migrant, called the Elder Brothers in the story, recounts how his family lived in a self-contained capsule home where everything had to be recycled. Eventually, the system began to deteriorate and then entered a point of near total collapse due to a lack of water, causing his father to utilize a resource conversion system to turn himself into nothing but his raw, useful elements to keep the system online. His body being turned into a bucket of just pure water, despite the fact not only a few hundred meters from their self-contained home, a beautiful stream flowed, but it was not their property, and if they took any, an enforcer of the social machine would kill them instantly. This sacrifice, however, did not save the system, and eventually the migrant had to leave his home due to the sheer lack of oxygen, and swallowed an air meter which would bill him for every breath taken outside. Saved by coincidence, luckily, a billion other homes' systems had also failed at the exact same time, although this was no recourse to prevent the enforcers from killing them all. Appearing in a giant display in the sky, the Last Capitalist, in an extravagant, out-of-touch, selfish, but merciful, somewhat, speech, allows all of his guests to board spacecrafts and leave his cozy little cottage of an entire bloody planet, offering them solidarity, or some solidarity at least, due to their shared ancestry. These migrants from the First Earth would then migrate to our Earth, and the migrant laments that whether or not our world would deteriorate to the same level of wealth concentration as theirs is not something anyone can know for sure. A civilization's destiny is a fickle and ever-changing thing. Motivated by this, Smoothbore then heads to the office of the men who had put him on all of his hitman jobs, kills them all, and burns billions of yen to make 2-minute noodles whilst the migrants' invasion fleet lowers down to the surface. Science fiction has never been about the spaceships, or the robots, or the teleporters, or the AI, or whatever, etc., etc., etc. Science fiction has never been about these things. Science fiction has always been at its most powerful when it's about the ideas. More specifically, when it's about the human condition. It's thanks to this power that sci-fi has with which to explore the human condition that I've always preferred it slightly, do not get mad at me here, why I've always slightly preferred it over fantasy. I think sci-fi just plainly is in a better position to explore the human condition, to explore the nature of life and our society. Particularly cyberpunk as a subgenre I feel is really good for this, as I went on at some length in the Electric State video. Because I like sci-fi, I like and consume a lot of sci-fi media, and some sci-fi media, like Love, Death and Robots, I watch a lot of. So, I watched the most recent season. And, well, it gave me some thoughts. Notably that it's a step down from its predecessors. I'm a big Love, Death and Robots lover. I'm just going to get that one out of the way there. But I do think there were a few mistakes, big critical mistakes, that this recent season made that prevented it from being able to succeed. First and most obvious is execution and runtime. Let's talk about the elephant in the room here. Most of the episodes of this season didn't feel like they were long enough, or that they ended satisfyingly enough. I would go into more detail breaking down how I think their execution in a lot of these episodes wasn't so good, but as many of the regular viewers of this channel would know by now, I'm not a film YouTuber who likes to delve really deep into the minutiae of the filmmaking craft. I like to focus on the big picture, which is kind of Stace speak for saying, I really like breaking down the politics in media. I really like breaking down media's relationship to history, to other media, to its creator, to its audience, to its world, etc. You know, I'm not someone who likes to examine art in a vacuum because I don't think art can exist in a vacuum. And I don't think that's a very fair or accurate way of talking about it. Besides the purpose of just, you know, studying the filmmaking craft and working on specific details and things, I don't really think there's much of a point to, well, breaking down the minutiae of film, because at the end of the day, it's just not a very correct way of analysing it. So yes, I'll say what every other YouTuber is going to say about this season, that it feels rushed, that the episodes aren't long enough, that the quality control for writing fell off of a cliff, that it seems they wasted their budget in places they really didn't need to put it, that it took too long to come out, and that yes, Golgotha is an absolutely shit episode, and the fact that they sacrificed pretty much the entire plot of it just to make that stupid "we fucked up" line, yeah, it's shit. Right? Good. Now that we've got that out of the way, I want to properly start breaking this down. So, in order to get to the bottom of this and explain the root cause of where I feel this season cocked up, we're going to need to talk about another sci-fi show on Netflix, who also had so much potential, but made the exact same critical error. And some other minor ones as well, but we'll get into that. We're of course talking about Altered Carbon. Originally releasing in 2018, Altered Carbon is, on the face of it, a pretty alright series. Heck, you ask most people, it's pretty good. It's got good critical reviews and ratings. I think it's like 70% on Rotten Tomatoes, something like that. Like, not amazing, not stellar, but like, good. See, I don't like it. Because when I look at Altered Carbon, I see so much potential, and just, they don't do enough with it. Like, do you have any idea how much of an absolute goldmine it is of an idea? Like, the ability to swap bodies, to mind upload, to cast yourself around the universe, the societal ramifications of turning the human body and soul into a tradable commodity. Like, the fact that this series only has, again, 70% on Rotten Tomatoes is absolutely silly, because this should be, like, that is an idea capable of producing a generational masterpiece. And instead, what we got was a slightly above average sci-fi show that has really high, like, really good production value. It's very detailed, the sets are amazing. But at the same time, it does fall short on pretty much everything else that it strives for. It misses the mark with a lot of things. The dialogue is not good, we're just going to get that one out of the way there to start. The murder mystery is convoluted and confusing and weirdly not that well plotted. It suffers from the age-old problem of telling rather than showing. The characters' relationships aren't really that developed, and a lot of them who should be likable haven't actually been made so. And especially, to top it all off, it is really insufferable with how it handles its exposition. Like, I damn near gave up on the show near the start, just how annoying the exposition was. It's almost like the series is afraid to have mysteries outside of the whole detective part. You know, it's almost as if it feels as though if it doesn't rigorously explain every single element of its world in impeccable detail, that the audience will be intrigued and have questions and speculate and be drawn into your world and allow you to build big reveals about your setting, which would make a whole lot of goddamn sense because the main character is very unfamiliar with it. Yeah, no, Altered Carbon just ain't about all that jazz, apparently. I don't know. The writers just saw all of that amazing stuff just sitting on the table and just went, you know, bruh, it's not for me, thanks. It's not my speed. But where Altered Carbon really misses its footing is when it comes to its bigger sci-fi concepts. See, Altered Carbon does do a passable job of exploring a lot of its big philosophical and religious ideas, and it definitely delves into some of the possibilities inherent with its main sci-fi concept of the stacks, which, inserted in the back of your neck, that's how they actually store the brain and its data and how you're able to transfer it between other people. They do definitely explore a lot of the possibilities, like with having multiple people inhabit the same bodies, like with Ortega's grandma in The Criminal, and the fact that Kovach's is inside Ortega's boyfriend's body, stuff like that. You know, they do definitely explore and touch on it. Oh, fuck, what? Memory card full? But see, thing is, I feel as though Altered Carbon just kinda misses the hoop here. It doesn't really examine the social or societal consequences of such technology fully, and especially doesn't explore the power systems in its world in interesting enough ways. Like, despite being so far removed from the rest of society, the Mets, the ultra-rich in this world, never quite get that level of just untouchability that you'd expect from such a dystopian setting. Like, you can't just say that these people are ungodly powerful and rule over the universe with an iron fist, and then in the first time we meet them, have some lowly random cop from the underbelly crash their car, yes, their car, like the Mets car, into their garden and just tear up a massive chunk of it. Like, imagine you pull some shit like that to a Russian oligarch or a board member of Lockheed Martin. Like, dude, you're getting disappeared. So the fact that this dystopian world, which is so much worse than our current one, in it you can just get away with stuff like that. Yes, I do know that they had the whole thing with the sun, but, like, still, that really shouldn't eclipse these people if they're that powerful. You know, letting something like that happen immediately the first time we see them is not a great first impression for setting up to the audience that these people are ungodly powerful. Especially when you have your main character shit-talking them the whole time. I mean, like, if someone said some of the stuff that Kovach says to Bancroft, the supposedly richest and most powerful man in the world, to me, dog, I would not take that. Bash that fucking motherfucker. Sock him in the teeth. Let alone if I was the richest and most powerful man in the universe. Like, Altered Carbon explores all of these concepts. It explores the commodification of body and life. It explores the virtual mind uploading and torture based upon that. It explores the class struggle and gender and race inequalities, and yet somehow just doesn't quite get all of them right. You know, it just skims the surface of all of these things, especially the whole gender and race thing. It handles those matters with all the subtlety of setting off a firework in a Zen Buddhist monastery. And, you know, by just only gently gliding over the top of these things, I feel it misses the point. I delved into this a bit in my Electric State video from a while back, but I do feel that Altered Carbon falls, if not slightly less than others, into the trap that has emerged around modern cyberpunk, or where the genre was. Decidedly, it's become less of a genre these days and more of just an aesthetic. See, as I said in that video, cyberpunk inherently, as part of its nature, is political. And not in the way that I explained in the last video, how everything is inherently, all media is inherently political. No. Cyberpunk is overtly political. You know, what defines something as cyberpunk is purely and rawly high-tech and low-life. Now, the problem is you can't have crazy high levels of developed technology and also a really low standard of living without there somehow being a level of inequality present in that society. In order to have these things, you need to inherently have some sort of class struggle, governmental injustice, etc., etc. The big evil corporations who are mainstays in the cyberpunk genre are almost inherent to its existence. And yet, so often now, cyberpunk isn't by that definition cyberpunk. People take the neon lights, the rainy streets, the cybernetic implants, all the aesthetics and surface level elements, which are honestly more tropes these days than, actual characteristics, and just lift them out and into their media, without really exploring the real stuff that makes cyberpunk. And I feel by not fully exploring its core ideas, Altered Carbon falls into that trap also. But see, this trap doesn't just exist for cyberpunk. Cyberpunk isn't the only genre that's just become an aesthetic and some common characteristics, tropes, and plot devices. No, sci-fi as a whole has been struggling with this problem. And that's really where I feel Love, Death and Robots made a critical fuck-up. Look, first off, yes, I know not all Love, Death and Robots episodes are sci-fi. But most are, and frankly, because I hate talking about things that I hate for so long, we are going to talk about one of my favourite episodes of the series, which I feel is the exact antithesis to the new season. Zima Blue is, well, it does baffle me just how much they managed to pull off in such little time. Zima Blue is a story mostly from the perspective, or narration actually, of a journalist interviewing a prolific and well-renowned artist named Zima, as he talks about his past, his art, and his final artistic work. See, Zima ain't no regular dude. We are told at the start that Zima was originally a portrait artist who became bored by painting the human form, and then had himself completely cybernetically rebuilt to be an indestructible robot so he could explore the cosmos, and then began painting gigantic murals depicting it. Zima then began to include small blue shapes in his artworks in the center, which slowly grew larger and larger until eventually they encompassed the entire canvas. Zima, now doing the explaining, talks about his true history, beginning as a simple, small pool cleaning robot who was eventually, over the years, modified and refined in order to fulfill more and more tasks, eventually becoming so complicated that he had gained sentience and become this grand, enlightened machine. In his final art piece, Zima has moved the original pool, which his original form was designed to clean, to his home, and surrounded by hundreds of aficionados and the types, jumps in, shuts down all of his auxiliary life functions and parts of his body as they fall away, and the small pool cleaning robot returns, left only with the ability to appreciate the satisfaction in a job well done. The blue colour, the Zima blue colour, that had covered all of his paintings being simply the colour of the pool tiles he was originally designed to clean. Zima blue is, well, it's really bloody good, is what it is, but it's also just great science fiction. It has big concepts and ideas. It has commentary on the nature of being human and the complexities of life. It explores art, man and machine, but it's never preachy. See, Zima Blue is never outwardly self-defined as philosophical, but it still is, because it explores these ideas gracefully and leaves the viewer thoroughly enraptured. Zima Blue is good science fiction because it's not really about the technology. It's about the human condition at the heart of it, and how new and changing technology can affect and interact with that. Some of you may be at this point wondering why I started this video with such a long story. But as I said at the very start, it's because I love sci-fi. I love sci-fi because it can imagine changes to our world. It can imagine how technology may shape it, its consequences, the fundamental parts of life and truths about being human, and in some really good stories, asks if they even are fundamental parts. You know, what even is fundamental to being human, to our existence? Can technology change all? This is what I love about the genre. This is what I love about the implications of the genre. This is what I love about the stories in the genre. And that's my problem with Love, Death and Robots Season 4 at its core. That's where I feel it really dropped the ball. Because so many stories in it are just about the spaceships. You know, they barely touch on the concepts in them, like Golgotha, the other large thing, or the screaming of the Tyrannosaur. Even outside of the sci-fi episodes, this problem persists. In For He Can Creep and How Zeke Got Religion, they just touch on their core ideas. It's a really bad sign that I think somehow the most focused and competent episodes of the series were the simplest. Sure, Spider-Rose didn't really suffer from these problems, but the fact that it got to pretty much the rest of the season is indicative of a core problem. So, Fincher, Miller, rein in your show. Get things focused. Make the ideas the point. Don't just slap flashy and exciting animation and huge production value out, and so sacrifice, the runtime of your episodes, because that strategy of just paying your way out of it sure as hell didn't work for Altered Carbon. Don't make the visual style the core point. It might be what people say a lot about when they talk about the show, but the ideas are what make the stories actually resonate with people. Focus on telling, focused stories with solid ideas, and just, again, don't make it all about the spaceships. Don't make it all about the teleporters, or the AI or whatever, and don't make it all about the visuals. Make it about the ideas and the humanity behind and with the technology. I mean, you literally set out to make this series with just 3 things in mind: love, death, and robots. And nothing sums up the human condition better than love and death, and nothing sums up technology's impact on that better than robots. So stick to that. Thank you for watching. I've been filmed by Stace, and if you haven't already, go watch the first few seasons of Love, Death and Robots. This installment might not have been all that, but its predecessors sure as hell are.
I wish I could give you up, but you're my new favorite drug. Enter into my blood, run with my toxic